Hey cats, it's Ed, Midsole Bud here, the internet's true running shoes savant. I am going road race crazy in 2024. I've booked up a number of events across the 10k and half marathon distance already. Later this month I've got the local Yeovil half marathon. It's Lake Race Hills to contend with. Also the sites of the Great Bristol Half Marathon in May, taking on the hills of Crewkerne in June for the Crewkerne 10k, and the Big Half in London to look forward to later this year. My quandary though is shoes selection. My training's on point, but which shoes for which event? Today I want to discuss the Yeovil Half. Let's get to it. Thanks for joining me, footwear friends, on the channel. Hit that subscribe button to help us to continue to grow, and also don't forget to give this video a thumbs up like. It really helps out with the algorithm and all that stuff. Dankeschön. Not sure if you guys at home have got the same feelings as me about super shoes of recent time. Does feel as if they're a little bit more tailored towards either like the lower distances, 5k up to the half marathon, and then there's certain shoes that really seem to be tuned for the full marathon distance. I think for the lower distances I'm a little bit more concerned about weight as the distance goes down. That just seems a little bit more important to me. I'm not so bothered about weight and sort of additional cushion when you're talking about the marathon. As such, the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris is one I'm really keen to try out over a race distance. Last time out with the Yeovil Half I did race in the Metaspeed Sky. Seems like ages ago now. I'm finding the new version of the Metaspeed sings at pretty much any sort of race effort. I think I trimmed off about 2 minutes of time off my course record when I last did the Yeovil Half. Just controlled my pace a little bit better that time, even enabling me to push a bit harder towards the end of the race. Though nothing is going to ever get you ready for the aptly titled Balls Hill. It's never going to be comfortable and enjoyable experience, that incline there. It's right on sort of 9 and 10 miles into the half, so you just have to go and do it on a long run a few times to make sure that you're fully aware of just what it's going to be like. It's not that bad, I suppose. I think with experience comes increased confidence. Really loving the nimble nature of the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris so far. Hopefully a few more of you are going to get to test this one out here in the UK. I think there might be some logistics issues in getting the shoes here. It really is so worth picking up once it does arrive. Just the nimble nature makes it a little bit better in terms of like overtaking. I found it good on varied camber as well, and elevation too. When you're going up hills, it does seem to really work for me. I think one area of contention about the Yeovil Half and shoe selection has got to be the surface that we're going to be running on. It's predominantly road and some concrete paths. I did do a long run the other day on the course, and there is some standing water at certain points, and especially through a couple of areas around miles 3 and 4 you can get a lot of sort of debris and mud there. Grip seems pretty consistent in this version of the shoe with the previous one, so I'm not massively worried about that, and hopefully the course will have a little bit of time to dry out too. It's certainly a bit more forgiving in the midsole this time. A little softer, perhaps a touch less rebound to it, but the plate position and the response of the midsole really does seem to work for me, rather than relying on a very specific curve in that mid to forefoot to propel you forward. Kind of like a trampoline really. I think it's certainly in the running for use at the Yeovil Half, no pun intended. Now, a shoe that's grown on me over the testing period has been the Alphafly 3 from Nike. This proto pair's got about 50 miles on it now, and it certainly has that lovely patina to it. It's slowly becoming more and more off-white, this one. I've done like 2 15-mile long runs in this one of which was over the Yeovil Half course, just to get the mind and body ready for the challenge. Alphafly 3 coming in handy on the recent long run with the legends Kev Next% Burton and Big Al. Now I believe Big Al is going to be pacing the half marathon that day, the 90-minute pacer. I think he's like a 1:25, 1:26 half marathon man, so it should be easy for him, no problems. I was considering putting like a tether on him and just sort of letting him pull me up the hills. I'll try and stick with Al if I can. That would be perhaps a little bit of a leap, I suppose, in terms of what I'm aiming for. If I can get in about 1:31, 1:32 on this one, I'd be really happy. It's a tougher half marathon. It's by no means flat. By the way, you can still sign up for the Yeovil Half Marathon. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go and experience Balls Hill for yourself. So is this an option? It certainly is a lot weightier than the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris. This pair is about 270 grams, so we're talking about 60 grams difference, and that is pretty considerable. Though, of course, I do have another pair of these in a size 11, so I could utilise this one maybe and break it in, but I do have a few reservations about that. If you remember when I first got the Alphafly 3 prototype, and did that long run in it, I had some really bad arch pain, I had squeaking in those AirPods. I have found that the shoes softened up quite a bit over about 50 miles, and it feels a little bit more like a maximised version of the Tempo Next Percent to me now. A little bit more forgiving in the heel though than the Tempo Next Percent. The pods certainly are up for some half marathon effort, as evidenced from a recent 2x10 minutes at threshold, and then another 30 minutes at that threshold pace. So easily up to the task, but I don't think it's a shoe I'd ever consider for like a 5 or 10k. It's just too bulky. So I do have that Box Fresh pair, but I don't think I'll be breaking these out to do the half. Yes, it's lighter, but like I said, it really does need a bit of attention. I'm not sure I'd want to go and run a half marathon knowing the issues I had with the other pair over the initial miles. That would just be foolish. No traction issues in the Alphafly 3. Actually been very impressed with that forefoot rubber area. Yeah, I've got a bit of degradation here, but it's just what you expect from Zoom X. It's gonna do it. Yes, it's noisy, but it handled that hill no problem the other day. So I guess it's a trade-off between the sort of more weighty cushion that we've got here in the Alphafly 3 versus that sort of very nimble, sort of barely there feel in the Asics shoe. Perhaps not quite the smoothness you want if you're going to be running at pace though. That brings me to pacing strategy. I was chatting with Big Al about his pacing strategy for this one. He's certainly going to try and bank some time in the first 3 or 4 miles. If you want to come in just under 1:30, then you're going to have to do that on this course. The first 4 miles are as helpful as you're going to get on this course, with some mild inclines only, relatively flat terrain. So it's time to grab some extra seconds there and bank those away. There's a steady climb between 5 and 8 miles, and that then leads to the first of those larger hills, and then the final opportunity to get some sort of sub half marathon pace miles in around mile 11 and 12. Things flatten out a little bit there and there's some downhill. Even if I was to bank 10 seconds per mile over the first 4 miles and then maybe a further 1 or 2 miles later, that's only giving you like a minute saving. So hence why my realistic goal for this half marathon is 1 hour 32. The final kilometre is uphill as well. It's quite a nasty one. I've been using that in my training runs recently to try and get used to it. In fact, hills have been my major improvement in training over the last 4 months. Just a note on the course, if you are going to be running this one, miles 9 and 10, you've got 2 hills. It's kind of like a fake hill before you get to the big one. One's a bit of a shorter elevated hill, and then that leads to a longer 136 foot climb over sort of like a half or 3/4 of a mile. I think that sorts the nimble from the not so nimble. It's a real tester. Very often you see people doing a bit of walking up that hill. Some jog it, some try and run up it. Though at least you've got the downhill section to come a little bit later on mile 12, I suppose. 2 other options, both from Saucony in fact, is the Endorphin Elite. I haven't had a chance to race in this shoe yet. Really quite sad about that. It still really smells strongly, if whatever the smell is, I don't know. It kind of smells like a garden centre to me, or like calamine lotion or something. The Elite really for me seems very much crafted for marathon racing rather than anything else. You got all that cushion there and that weight relieved upper. It really does fit into that marathon category, so I think I'll probably hold this back for a little while. Slightly denser underfoot this one, but that leads us to the slightly more traditional Endorphin Pro 4. I think this one perhaps feels a little bit more versatile across those common race distances, I did run the Weymouth Bay 10K in this one, and it was an enjoyable ride, but certainly feel it fits for me more into the half marathon to marathon category. I had some good results at the Weymouth Bay 10K, not a PB by any stretch, but it was a good effort, good honest effort I suppose. Running into the westerly wind was pretty tough. I had to do that in fact on my training last night in the ASICS shoe. It was punishing really, but yeah, it does build you up. Builds up the strength of character. Again, I don't think this would be my ultimate choice for like a 5k. I just think there's slightly more responsive, nimble shoes out there. One thing to note, interestingly, is that both of the Endorphin Elite and this one weigh pretty much the same, and now the Alphafly 3 in the same size is almost exactly the same weight. That was always perhaps the bugbear people had about the Alphafly. It was a bit heavier than everything else, but now is not the case. Earlier in the year I did run the Blackmore Vale Half Marathon in the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 2. That had almost 900 foot of elevation, and I was happy to get in sub 1 hour 35 on that. Again, perhaps a marathon shoe for me in terms of the softness you've now got in the heel. Perhaps that original Fast R Nitro Elite was a little bit more tuned as a low distance racer. So 2 races down this year and 2 course improvements. No PRs as of yet, but I'm really happy to have knocked a load of time off both of those courses. Will I make it another 2-minute improvement over my time on the Yeovil Half Marathon this year? So if I did manage to knock 2 minutes off that one, it would be a half marathon personal best. So I'm not going to be quite that optimistic. I'm going to aim for about 1:32 on this one. I think race PB wise, I am going to have another crack at the Bristol Half Marathon. I have a time of 1 hour 31:48 on that, and I'm feeling really good right now, so perhaps we'll have another bite at the cherry on that PB. At this moment, I think I'm airing towards the ASICS Metaspeed Sky Paris. It's some shoe, and it's just fun and exciting to run in, and I'm going to need to bank a bit of early time on that half marathon to stand a chance of breaking that record that I've got. Let me know your race goals, targets, and events for this year down in the comments. Quick musical interlude for you. During my training recently, I've been listening to a lot of music to try and sort of elevate the testosterone level, get a bit of aggression in there. I find it quite hard to reach those sort of threshold or above paces unless I've got some reason, you know. You kind of invent things in your mind. A little bit like Jordan used to do, you know, in the basketball days of the 90s. He used to come up with these like rivalries and say that people have said stuff about him to kind of drive him forward. I haven't been doing that, but I've been utilising some music of the more aggressive variety. One such track is the Fairground remix of Everybody in the Place by The Prodigy. Just when I hear the initial sort of musical stabs at the start of the track, it really does start to get me going. I know that I've got to raise my level and really go for it and just push things a little bit further into the red or into the orange as it is on my watch. That's like threshold area. I remember when this track came out, originally it had the 12-inch version of it. Oh, it sounded absolutely fantastic. Any system you put it on as well, it still sounded good, even if it was one that didn't have sort of some larger sub-bass speakers or cabinets. They seem to have tuned it just right, so it still kind of had that same energy if you were just listening to it on the little speakers in your Nissan Micra. I think it still stands as one of my favourite Prodigy tracks, maybe in the same sort of area as Outer Space. I love Everybody in the Place. Go and check it out if you've never heard it before. It's a truly fantastic running track. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's video and you're all doing okay out there. Remember that doing your best is always good enough. And if somebody's telling you that it's not, then yeah, you're in the wrong place. Get as far away from them as you can. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. My name's Ed Budd, and I'll be seeing you